Welcome, listeners, to Tales, a podcast that brings your short stories to life through narrations, sound effects, and more. These stories will be brought to you by different authors with different writing styles, but with the same spooky vibes. So, lock your doors, check your closets, make certain there's nothing lurking under your bed, and enjoy.
And thereby hangs a tale.
Elridge wasn't small, not by census, not by skyline, but it felt small. The kind of city that had history baked into its sidewalks, brick streets too stubborn to be paved over, oak trees with roots like knuckles, and Spanish moss hanging from every limb like the town was trying to whisper something it didn't want to say out loud. It had that sticky quiet found in cities that had once been ports or rail hubs, the kind of place that had its heyday a century ago, and never quite let go of it. You could still hear trolley bells downtown. You could still take a ghost tour if you wanted. And, if you asked the right people, you'd find out the lamplights never really go out. That's why I was here. I had been walking the edge of town since sunrise. The city square looked like a postcard, iron balconies, corner cafes, and old clocks that didn't quite keep time anymore. But the deeper you went toward the northeast industrial fringe, past the old textile corridor, the prettier parts gave way to warehouse bones and damp-smelling alleyways. That's where the light had been failing, and that's where the workers had gone missing. 7 in 14 months. No bodies, no resignations, no goodbyes, just vanished. Each of them assigned to check on the same stretch of road just outside the city's reach. Each of them last seen at dusk. The department reports were thin. Elridge's utility office had filed it as non-urgent worker absence. A local PD called it employment abandonment. But someone in the organization flagged it, and someone else thought I'd be a good fit to investigate. Lucky me. I had a name to start with. Dale Kennard, a supervisor at the Elridge Public Works office. According to my contact, he was the last person to speak with at least 3 of the missing contractors, and he hadn't returned a call in 6 days. By the time I got there, the clouds were heavy with summer rain, not enough to fall yet, just enough to press down on the rooftops and make the air feel thick with static. The office looked like a half-forgotten museum with faded wooden siding, shuttered windows, and a rickety porch with a rocking chair that might have been there since the Depression. I knocked once, and then twice. "Doors open," a voice called from inside. Dale looked exactly how I'd imagined. Lean, silver-haired, long-sleeved button-up despite the heat. He sat behind a desk piled with paperwork and old manuals. An oscillating fan ticked behind him, doing absolutely nothing. "You the inspector?" he asked, not getting up. "Close enough," I said. "Just looking into your lights." That made him snort. "You're 2 months too late," he said, waving toward a half-filled binder. "We already filed the reports. Hell, we already replaced the bulbs. Still won't hold." "Wiring?" "New. Brand new. Laid it ourselves last spring." "Transformer?" "Stable. Checked it twice." I paused, watching him. "Then what do you think it is?" Dale leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowed like he wanted to say something, but didn't know if I'd believe it. "I think something out there doesn't want to be seen," he said finally, "and it doesn't like us trying." Outside, the first drops of rain tapped the roof like fingers, and somewhere not far from here a light flickered and then went out. Dale gave me a list of names. Most were crossed out, contractors who had gone missing, moved, or stopped answering calls. But one wasn't. Her name was Mara Jennings. "Last one to quit," Dale said, tapping her name with a calloused finger. "Didn't vanish like the others. She just walked off the job. She didn't even give her 2 weeks' notice. She said she didn't like what she saw near and what was happening at Section 7 of the site. So the dark wasn't right." "Section 7? He pointed to a spot on the wall map northeast sector, just past the old freight yard near the river bend. She was the one who told me to stop sending people out there, he added. Didn't listen, thought she was just rattled. But now, he didn't finish, just looked at me like I already knew. Mara lived in an apartment above a record store, not a vinyl boutique with ironic signage, curated playlists, an actual aging record shop that sold dusty LPs and used speakers out of a former pharmacy building. Her place was up a narrow side stairwell with a busted light overhead. Fitting. I knocked twice. Nothing. I was about to try again when I heard the deadbolt turn. The door cracked open an inch.
You with the city?
Not quite, I said. Named Samuel. I'm just looking into what's been happening with the lights and the people. She opened the door a little wider, just enough to get a good look at me. Then, after a long beat, she stepped aside and let me in. Her apartment was a cluttered patchwork of the past. Incense smoke in the air, stacks of old film cameras, books on folklore and quantum mechanics shoved onto the same shelf. A lava lamp glowed red in the corner, like an eye half-lit in sleep.
You're not local.
No.
You don't ask questions like a city guy.
Also true. She gave a small, lopsided smile and sat cross-legged on a low couch covered in an old quilt. Her cat, or possibly someone else's, blinked at me from the windowsill.
So, you want to know why I quit?
I want to know what you saw. Mara didn't answer at first, just looked out the window where the street lamp across from us buzzed faintly, then dimmed.
That's not usually how they go. When bulbs blow, they pop. Flicker, spark. These don't. They just fade, like something swallowing the light.
You think it's deliberate?
I think it started after the third disappearance.
Any pattern to where the lights are failing? Mara nodded slowly.
Same route, same curve along the river, past the old canning plant.
That's near Site 7.
It is Site 7. The whole place used to be industrial back when Elderidge was booming. It's mostly empty now, just weeds and steel bones.
And that's where you quit? She hesitated.
No. I quit after I saw what was standing beneath the lamppost.
My skin went cold. What was it? She took a breath.
At first, I thought it was a man, just standing there, in the dark. You know, like when your headlights hit someone at night and they don't flinch? That kind of still. Like, he was waiting for something.
Waiting for what?
For the light to die.
A long silence passed.
I don't talk about this. People here think I'm weird, and the ones who don't think I'm lying think I'm crazy.
You're not, I said. You're just the only one who saw it clearly.
I think I saw it too clearly.
I stood to leave, but paused in the doorway. If you had one guess, I asked, what would you call it?
What, the thing under the light?
Yeah.
There's a story I read. Appalachian, maybe older, said some roads were never meant to be crossed after dark. They weren't built with rules, just taken by something older. And once night falls, it keeps track.
Of what?
Who travels, who stays, who disappears.
She looked at me dead on.
And people who didn't listen.
Outside, the sky had cleared. The rain had washed the air clean, but not the feeling crawling just beneath it. I looked up at the streetlight across from Mara's building. It flickered once, then, like a breath held too long, it went out. The city's maintenance depot sat at the edge of an industrial corridor, tucked behind a half-crumbled brick wall and a rusted chain-link gate that didn't quite lock anymore. A laminated sign on the fence read, "City Utilities, authorized personnel only." It didn't stop me. The yard smelled like rain and metal. Rows of service vehicles lined the gravel lot, their white paint dulled from years in the sun. I moved past a busted street sweeper and headed toward the back of the building, a squat concrete structure with flickering fluorescence just inside the open bay. A woman with a safety vest was arguing with someone over a clipboard. She looked up when she saw me and motioned me over.
Oh, hey, you the one sent by them?
I nodded. Samuel Lane. She glanced over her shoulder, then pulled me off to the side between two storage sheds.
I'm Harper, crew lead for the organized shifts. Look, I'm not saying anything happened, but things ain't been right since Travis went missing.
Travis Wren? I asked. That was the name in the report. 32, lamplighter, last seen clocking out after finishing a route near the riverfront.
Yeah, quiet guy, reliable, never missed a shift. Then one night, poof! Van's still here actually, locker untouched. But him? Gone like smoke.
I let the silence stretch a second. Was that the first time something weird happened? I asked.
Look, it wasn't the first time I noticed, if that's what you mean.
Go on. She folded her arms, her voice low.
Lights have been going out faster than usual. You screw in a new fixture, and the next night, it's blown again. But not broken, just off. Whole blocks go in dim, like the city's being swallowed, bit by bit.
Anyone else go missing?
Yeah, 2 others quit suddenly. Just up and left. One of them, Lenny, sent a voicemail before he disappeared. Said something was following him during his rounds. Said the dark felt thicker.
I felt that weight again, like something watching. Harper looked at me hard.
You ever heard silence so deep it hums?
I didn't answer. She jerked her thumb toward the rear lot.
Anyway, Travis's van is back there. They didn't move it.
Mind if I take a look?
I was told to cooperate. So no. But I'll say this. I don't go near it after sunset.
The van was parked along the far edge of the lot, beneath a half-dead oak that looked like it had stopped growing out of respect for the rest of vehicles around it. It looked ordinary enough, a standard utility rig with a faded city crest peeling on the side, and a cherry bucket arm latched to the roof. I walked a slow circle around it, hands in my jacket pockets. The tires were slightly sunken, like it hadn't moved in days. Dust crusted the windows. No signs of forced entry, no keys in the ignition. When I opened the door, the air was still and dry. The van had been shut tight for days. Inside, the cab was untouched, clipboard still clipped, city radio dead. Half-drunk coffee in the cup holder, lid buckled inward like it had been gripped too hard. There was a city-issued jacket still hanging from the back of the seat. And beneath that, wedged between the console and floor, was Travis's notebook. Carefully, I pulled it free. The notebook was spiral-bound with water-stained pages filled with time logs, checklists, and route numbers. And then toward the back, the handwriting changed. It became sloppier, angled. I read the last few entries, heard the light pop behind me, turned around, nothing there. 3rd night in a row, same alley, same time, the dark feels thick there, like it's pressing in. Harper thinks I'm tired. Maybe I am, but something waits just outside the bulb's reach. I know it. Tonight, I leave one light off, just to see. That was the final entry. I lowered the notebook and closed the van door behind me. For a moment, just a flicker of a moment, I thought I heard footsteps crunching gravel from the direction of the shadows near the shed. But when I turned, nothing was there. Only heat shimmer and silence. By mid-morning, the cloud cover had thickened. The wind coming off the marsh carried a low hum. I made my way to the last known address of one of the disappeared, Milo Garrett, a ground mechanic who vanished 2 weeks ago mid-shift. That's where I met Clara Ortiz. She was waiting outside the building, arms crossed, wind tugging at the collar of her canvas jacket. Sharp eyes and dark hair pulled back. Looked at me like she already didn't like me.
You're the guy from the agency, right?
I nodded. Samuel, you're the one who filed the incident report?
Yeah, one of them. Don't expect a welcome party. They think Milo just quit and skipped town. But he didn't.
We headed up the narrow stairwell together. Clara had worked with Milo in avionics, and apparently they'd been close enough that she was listed as his emergency contact. That's how she had a key. She paused at the top landing.
Place has been locked since the day he disappeared. I've been checking it once a week.
I waited for her to unlock the door. Then we stepped inside. Clara pushed the door open, and the hinges gave a low creak. The apartment was dim, curtains half drawn, no lights on. I expected the smell of food left out too long, or mildew from a busted pipe, something that said, no one's been home. But instead it smelled neutral, stale, like a hotel room that hadn't been booked in months.
Milo was neat, always kept things in order. It looks like he froze mid-routine.
She wasn't wrong. A mug sat on the counter, half full. A pair of running shoes by the door, laces still knotted. The bed was made, tight corners, top sheet folded back like someone had planned on coming home that night. Only, no one did. I walked further in, scanning the apartment with the kind of quiet I'd learned from people who'd seen too much. Not every haunting started with cold spots and rattling doors. Some started with silence, with absence. Clara trailed me, arms crossed again. Her eyes never stopped moving. Anything stand out when you first came in? I asked.
No. And that's the problem. It looked like he stepped out for groceries and forgot to come back.
Any signs of a struggle? Forced entry?
What kind of question is that? Did you not hear me? The place has been locked since he left, and nothing seems to be out of place, so none. But aren't you supposed to be the light guy? The person who's here to fix the light issue at the site? Why are you asking questions like you're some cop?
I turned to face her. Yes, I am the inspector to help figure out the light problem, but I'm also here to figure out why the company keeps losing their workers. Because of that, there is another issue as well. We're having problems hiring folks because of the men who have went missing, quit, or whatever. So I need to figure out if this is some scam, sick joke maybe, or is there someone hurting our workers? Although I'm sure there's police working this, the company also has to ensure the safety of their workers, including myself. Clara did not respond. I took it as an acceptance of my answer and continued to browse the apartment. I turned toward the desk. Small and utilitarian, an open notebook rested there. Pen laid across the crease like it had been placed with care. I flipped it open. Most of the pages were filled with maintenance logs, little sketches of engines, a few song lyrics. Then the writing changed. The lines got shorter, tighter. Something watches from the lights. I saw it again near Site 6. No one else looked up. No one ever looks up. It's in the gaps, the thing we pass by and forget. I think it's following me home. I glanced up at Clara, who had gone still. You didn't read this before?
I stopped after the lyrics. Didn't want to go looking for something I couldn't explain.
Smart instinct, but bad timing. We won't find anything else here, I said, closing the notebook and tucking it under my arm. Clara nodded slowly, the lines in her face deeper now, tired, not from the day, but from the weight of knowing.
He was right, wasn't he? Something's wrong out there.
I didn't answer, didn't need to. We both felt it. She lingered at the doorway, hand brushing the light switch. For a moment, I thought she might say more. A memory, fear, anything. But instead, she exhaled through her nose, flicked the light off, and stepped into the hallway. We locked the door behind us. The hotel room was dim, lit only by the glow from the desk lamp. I clicked send on an update. It was short, informative, and just enough to keep Timothy off my back for another day or two. I included the name of the missing warehouse employee in my plan to check the site again, this time under the cover of night.
I zipped up my jacket and pulled the hood up over my head. The rain had picked up, light but steady, tapping soft rhythms on the window. Out on the streets of Elridge, it was quiet. My boots hit the pavement in long strides, weaving me through narrow lanes and alleys that hadn't seen fresh brick in 50 years. The city held on to its ghosts in the architecture. I figured it probably held on to other things too. I kept to the shadows, and halfway through a shortcut past a shuttered antique store, I felt it. That crawling sense at the nape of my neck. Not danger, just a presence. Someone or something was behind me. I didn't dare turn, nor did I speed up. I made a casual detour through a side alley between a closed jazz bar and a pawn shop, listening. Boots on wet stone, a breath that wasn't mine, and when I cut back onto the main street, the sound had gone. I let myself breathe out, told myself it was just nerves, or maybe Elridge didn't like being watched. The sight came into view ahead, the old building, still half lit from the street lamps. I stepped off the curb, scanning the perimeter. Then a voice, low and uncertain from behind.
Hey, don't freak out.
I spun around. A woman stood under the overhang of a closed flower shop, hood down, hair wet from the rain. Mara? She offered a sheepish shrug, pulling her coat tighter.
Yeah, sorry, I saw you across Bayview and I figured I'd check in.
You followed me?
I wasn't stalking. I was headed home when I saw you heading toward the terminal after dark in the rain. You looked like someone who wasn't supposed to be there. So I guess that makes two of us.
I relaxed, slightly. And here I thought I was being stealthy. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes.
Something told me I should follow.
You always trust your gut like that?
Only when it won't shut up.
She stepped out from the awning and joined me on the sidewalk. Well, I'm guessing you already assumed that I'm heading towards your old work site. I wanted to see what goes bump in the night there. If there is another person, maybe who's causing this. I said, knowing a person probably was not behind the disappearances. Come on, you're already wet. Might as well see this through. The rain had thinned to a mist by the time we reached the edge of the construction site. It clung to the fencing in beads and ran cold down the back of my neck. Mara walked just behind me, with her hood up and hands in her jacket pockets. Inside the gate, the place looked like any other dead zone project. Stacks of rebar, floodlights half working, the skeletons of new buildings clawing up towards the gray sky. It was just shy of midnight. A few night shift workers were scattered around. Most half asleep or watching something on their phones. No one paid attention to us.
So, this is it? Doesn't look like much.
Never does. We lingered near the old street, the one no one had bothered to tear up. Its cracked bricks ran crooked through the site, ending in the one thing no one could seem to remove, a single iron lamppost. The bulb above it glowed a faint amber, like it wasn't electric at all. I checked my phone. 11:55 p.m. Well, I said, shoving my hands into my jacket. Either something happens or... Mara touched my arm.
There.
At the base of the lamppost, a figure stood motionless. Not working, not watching, just standing. We both went still. The hum of the site vanished. The drizzle stopped midair, and the world shifted. Merriwick. It wasn't instant. It unfolded like an old photo dipped in water. The city was gone, the construction site erased. In its place, the kitchen from my childhood, the one in Merriwick, yellow tile floors, an ugly ceramic rooster above the stove, the windows glowing warm with late afternoon sun. And Maeve, she was alive, laughing. She sat at the table across from me, biting into a grilled cheese like she always did, crust first. I knew that sound. I knew that moment. It wasn't deja vu, it was real. I didn't remember sitting down, but there I was, elbow on the table, soda can sweating beside my hand.
and Mev was talking about her first day back from school like it had just happened. Like the horseman had never come. Like she had never died. Like the world had never twisted into something cruel. She smiled at me.
Sammy, you're being weird. Eat your sandwich.
And for a second, I did.
The smell of freshly cut grass filled the air. She blinked against the sunlight, real sunlight, not the haze of floodlights, and found herself back at home. Her first home. The farmhouse on the hill before the world went sideways. Her brother was alive, young, 8, maybe 9, running through the orchard like he used to. The orchard had burned down years ago. Her brother had died, but here, he was alive, laughing. "Come on, Mara," he shouted over his shoulder. His voice was something holy. She ran after him barefoot across the soft grass, and her heart didn't hurt anymore. It didn't ache.
My smile faded. Mev was still talking, her voice sharp, too clear, like it had been pulled from memory and polished too much. Her movements were real but wrong, rehearsed. I looked around. Everything was right, down to the chipped corner of the table, the flickering light above the sink, the scratch in the linoleum. But I wasn't supposed to be here. My heart started to pound. I stood slowly.
What? You're not staying? I made your favorite.
She pointed to the plate. I hadn't even seen her set it down. It was grilled cheese like the one she was eating, still warm and steaming. Morning came and I jolted upright. Hotel ceiling, hotel sheets, my shoes were still on, jacket twisted, my throat was dry and my hands were clammy. I checked the clock, 9:03 a.m. I had lost 9 hours. No calls or messages, no memory of leaving the site. Mara was gone, and the rain had stopped. The clock read 9:07 a.m. by the time I'd steadied my breathing enough to move. My hands were still cold, and there was ringing in my ears that I couldn't shake. But I knew one thing for sure. Mara. I had to find her. Her apartment was only a 15-minute walk from the hotel. She opened the door before I even knocked.
"I saw it too,"
she said. No hello or questions. Her eyes were red, and her voice was thin.
"It brought me back. To the orchard. My brother was there. He was laughing. I want to go back. I have to see if it's really him."
I kept my voice calm. "Tonight?"
"It's the only way to know for sure. But if you want to wait, I'll understand. I'm going, Sam. With or without you."
I hesitated, then gave her a small nod. "We'll go together. Later. Just give me a few hours. Let me prepare." Mara's shoulders relaxed a little, but not enough. I'd bought myself time. Back at the hotel, I locked the door behind me and went straight to my laptop. I didn't waste time drafting a report, just shot off a brief update to Timothy. In the email, I put what I experienced last night, along with what Mara went through and how she was feeling now. I mentioned the figure that we both saw at the lamppost before everything happened, and then faded to black. The lost time, and even though it was hard for me to mention, I told him I urged him to go back as well. You see, it wasn't just Mara who wanted to see her brother. I wanted to be back in my mom's kitchen with Mev. The reply came back fast, like he had been sitting there waiting. It read, "From Timothy, they're changing, Sam. This isn't the same playbook anymore. Entities aren't just echoing trauma, they're using it, evolving. Think around the pattern. Think we missed something? Don't go in unarmed." I sat back in the chair, heart thudding. My go bag was already laid out across the bed. Holy water, blessed by a priest and queens who didn't ask questions. Iron spikes, cold forged, good for most things that aren't quite tethered to this plane. And the brass knuckles, silver, polished, and unnaturally warm to the touch. A gift from someone who claimed to see through the skin of the world. She had handed them to me after Mev's funeral, smiling like she knew I'd need them. When the truth won't speak, silver will, and if it breaks your knuckles, it means you're hitting the right thing. The engraving read, "Speak only what's real, bleed only for the living."
I didn't know what the hell that meant, but it felt right in my hand. I stared out the hotel window as the rain started again, softer now. Like the sky was just reminding me it was still there. Part of me hoped this would be it, that tonight would bring answers or peace, or at least a direction to the point of the grief. I knew Mara was already leaning too far in, and if I didn't stop her, she'd be next. She wanted to believe in something. I understood that. I'd wanted it too once. But this wasn't salvation. It was a seduction, and if I had to follow it all the way down to drag her out, I would. I checked my watch and noticed I still had time. Not much, but enough. We arrived just before midnight. The rain had eased into a misty drizzle, enough to blur the lights, but not enough to keep people indoors. A skeleton crew manned the site, but they didn't look up as we passed, heads bent to phones, blank expressions, ghosts of their own. Mara stuck close behind me as we slipped past the half-finished structures and slabs of old foundation, her breath sharp in the cold air. "Nothing yet," I whispered, glancing at my watch. 11:57. She nodded but didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the lone lamppost standing crooked near the edge of the lot, the one that never went out. And then midnight struck, and the world blinked. The scent of rain vanished, replaced with the clean, warm smell of dinner being made. My hands were full with grocery bags and a house key. I stood outside my childhood home. Mev opened the door for me, grinning, her hair pulled up in the messy bun she always wore on lazy weekends.
There you are. Thought you were going to leave me stranded with the potatoes again.
I smiled without meaning to. My chest ached, but not from pain, just longing. We cooked and we laughed. The house felt whole again. We played music, argued about what to binge watch. I had forgotten how normal could feel so comforting. Dinner was simple: chicken, mashed potatoes. Mev gave me the extra biscuit like she always had. Later, we sat on the porch, the cicadas humming, and the air soft with spring. She nudged my shoulder.
Hey, you good, Sammy?
I swallowed. My hands were in my lap. One still held the bag I brought with me, the real bag. Holy water, iron, silver, knuckles. I don't want to go. Maeve leaned her head against my shoulder.
Then don't.
That's when this wasn't a memory, and that this was desire. I reached into the bag, unscrewed the holy water flask, and splashed it across her lap. She shrieked, but not in pain, not quite, but in a voice that rattled the bones beneath the porch. Mev's skin flickered like a bad signal, her features twisting into something wide-eyed and monstrous. Her mouth opened far too wide. I rose to my feet. She's already gone. You're not her. The illusion melted like wax. The porch dissolved into an infinite dark, a void of nothing but whispers and breath and heat. The succubus stepped out of it. She was beautiful, a face borrowed, a voice shaped to match what I'd lost. She stepped forward and tried to cut my cheek. And that's when I drove my fist into her gut, the silver knuckles connecting hard. Her scream split the dark. "I'm not yours," I said, "and neither is she." She lashed out, claws forming from smoke and memory. I ducked and rolled, struck again, the silver catching her across the jaw, searing the false skin.
I gave them peace. I gave them what your world never could.
Peace isn't real if you steal it. We fought in the dark, but every blow I landed pushed the illusion back, peeled away the dream layer by layer. I was gasping and bleeding, but I didn't stop. And finally she began to come apart, her skin fracturing like glass under fire, her face melting into static, its voice looping the name Mev over and over until it was meaningless. And then, nothing. Only me. Only silence. I woke up on the ground and felt rain hitting my skin. Mara was beside me, curled into herself, eyes wide as she came to. "You okay?" I asked, reaching out. She stared at me but didn't speak. "I think it's gone. It was a succubus, maybe older than what the books even remember. It used memories and grief to pull us in, feed off what we cannot let go of." I waited for relief in her expression, but it never came.
You killed it?
"Yes." She sat up slowly, then looked at me with something that wasn't gratitude.
You had no right!
I blinked. "Mara."
You think you saved me? I saw my brother. Held him again. He told me he was proud of me.
Tears streaked her face, but she didn't wipe them away.
You took that from me!
"It wasn't real."
It was real to me!
She stood, shaking, then backed away like I was the monster now.
Don't follow me.
She said and turned into the rain. I didn't. I just sat there, soaked, bleeding and cold, but alive, and not entirely sure what I had just saved. 2 days later, I boarded a train out of Elridge. Didn't bother flying. The airport was too loud and I needed the hum of wheels on rails. Something slower and more human. I'd fill in Timothy with the details of the succubus and the illusion and the fight. Mara never returned my calls afterwards, and I didn't blame her. I kept thinking about what she had said, about what I took from her. And maybe she was right. Maybe I did steal something. Or maybe I just pulled her out of a fire she didn't want to leave. It's not always easy to know the difference. That's the problem with this work. You show up thinking you're the rescue, but sometimes people don't want to be saved. Sometimes the dream feels better than waking up. I don't know if this thing is over for good. I don't think things like that ever really end. You just learn how to survive them. And maybe, if you're lucky, you remember why you started walking in the first place.
This episode of Tales was written by N. Varro, narrated by Brody Mason, aka Brodsky, and Dana Diaz, with yours truly coming on the vocals as well. You just heard The Lamppost, a tale about the quiet things we pass every day until they start to notice us back. And maybe, just maybe, they always have. If your street ever flickers a little too long, if a shadow doesn't quite belong, maybe keep walking and don't look back. This has been another tale woven for the dark, told for the strange, and left lingering in your thoughts. If you enjoy The Lamppost, share it with a friend who likes their stories a little unsettling. And don't forget to follow, rate, and leave a review. It helps the shadows spread. Until next time, Tale Weavers, stay aware, stay curious, and whatever you do, don't stop beneath the light.